Okay, good morning. A little bit of adjustment there. Alright, another day. See what comes to me on this one. So, read a quick page out of my daily laws for today. I believe it's February 12th, if I got that right. And the law of the day is learn by doing. So that's moving from the stage of absorbing the information about a task or a skill, right? The description of what it is you're trying to learn, and moving into the stage of putting that information into action, right? Going from the words to the to the actual physical act. Like the page I read today out of my book gave the example of a sushi chef. And I guess within that world, there's very guarded techniques on how to use the knife. A lot more goes into making traditional sushi than just, laying down the ingredients and making a roll or whatever it is. You just don't slap it together. There's an art behind it. And that goes for everything. It really, if you take it to that degree, it should be an artful doing. I used to have a book by Julia Cameron, I think that was her name, called The Artist's Way. And she talks about that. How everything that you do should be seen from the prism of an artist. Doesn't matter what you do in terms of your occupation. There's always some sort of technique for doing something, even if you're just a trash man. Right? I saw a video once of a trash man. He was picking up these garbage cans, and he was like, instead of just like throwing the trash into the back of the trash, this was back in the day before it was all automated. Instead of throwing the trash, into the back of the trash truck, putting the can back down, he was like flipping the trash can in a way that forced the garbage out of the can. As it flipped, the trash landed in the truck. And as it flipped, he kind of caught it by the handle, placed it back down. And he was just a trash man. But he perfected a technique that in one fluid motion he could just flip, catch, boom, back down, keep going. And it looked effortless. But I wonder how many times he practiced that until he got it right. Imagine all the times trash went everywhere, but he kept trying. He figured it out. That's why I like skills sports. Things like billiards, or what else? Golf. Golf's a good example of a skill sport. Right? You have to execute one perfect stroke, and you only get one shot to do it, right? If you're a professional, you can't just flub the shot. Okay, wait a minute. Let me get a redo. There are no redos. You had that one time. That's why it takes all those hours of practice. I think the generally accepted rule is 10,000 hours. I think that's what I've heard. I hope I'm getting that right. I think they say it takes about 10,000 hours of practicing something for you to attain an expert level of proficiency when it comes to whatever that skill or task is. 10,000 hours of doing. over and over. Doing, mind you, not reading. Not just reading about what you're going to be doing. You must do. Right? So I'm kind of big on that also. I try to live the things that I read, all the philosophy and all the Robert Greene books and the Mastery and the 48 Laws of Power and the Art of War and all these different books that I read over and over again. I try to embody them. I try to make them manifest in the actions that I execute in my daily life, in the words that I speak. Right? These aren't just things that I think. I say them, and then I show them through the actions that I do. I may miss the mark sometimes, right? I may lose my temper. I may, just screw it, whatever. I fall into that. Everybody does. It's human. It's natural. It's normal. The key is to not beat yourself up when you do those things. When you do miss the mark, don't beat yourself up. Just learn. Learn from the moment. Man, I lost my temper. I shouldn't have said that. Okay. I know what that felt like when I was about to lose my temper. Recognize it when it comes again, and then make a better choice. That's all life is about, is making a better choice. Not the perfect choice, just the better one. Right? Better than the one you made before. Right? You said this that one time. Okay, maybe not next time. Maybe don't say that. Maybe I could say it this way. That's another thing I've always thought. You can say anything to anybody. It's all in how you say it. Like, even if you're about to tell somebody how much you don't like them, you could say, I effing hate you. You could say that, but you're gonna get the natural response that statement elicits. But there's a more constructive way to make that statement with your words. Something like, I don't know, just whatever just popped into my mind right now. For example, instead of I effing hate you, I don't prefer people like you, right? Something like that. There's always a better way to say or do something. So that's what I try to do every day. I always try, at least make the effort to try to find the alternative process that's more productive. And then it just trickles on up from there, from turning all the negatives into a more positive, to making the positives even more positive. Just there's always something to improve. And that improvement comes by doing. Right? It's not enough to just, like, say you're a Christian. It's not enough to just read the Bible and believe in the teachings of Jesus. You have to embody them. You have to bring them to life in your actions. That's why it's like, okay, you can go out there and stand on a street corner and preach. That's a good thing too, right? That's a doing of sorts. But really the doing is just the talking, right? You're expressing the words. That's still falling a bit short. You want to express the words by acting the words out with your body. It's not just enough to preach humility. You must show it with your actions. It's not enough to preach grace. You must show it with your actions. Right? You can preach all day about being charitable. Are you doing charity work? Right? Do you go feed the homeless? Right? Do you contribute to society in that type of way that actually shows that you are these things? Right? Without your words. That's the key. Preaching requires words. If I take your words away, how do you preach the gospel? right? If I force you, if I tell you, okay, preach the gospel, but you're not allowed to talk, how do you do that? How are you going to show me that? That's an interesting thought. Right? All these preachers that stand behind a pulpit and speak to their congregations. All right, let's take the church away. Let's talk about the politicians. All these politicians that talk to their constituency, right? To their people that believe in them and follow them and voted for them. All right, what if I take your words away? What if you're not allowed to talk? Now how do you express your opinion? What do you do? Show me. That's a more interesting thought. I like that. Just thought of that right now, actually. If I take your words away, how do you preach your gospel? You do that by doing. So it's interesting that some of these, I think there are some sects, S-E-C-T-S, not S-E-X. There are sects of monks, I believe, who've taken vows of not celibacy, vow of silence. They don't speak. Maybe that's the reason why. By taking a vow of silence, you've now committed to expressing the example of your beliefs through physical action only. And that physical action can't be moving your jaw and saying words. Now it becomes a lot more interesting. You have to be very creative now on how you're going to express what's in your mind through your bodily actions only. Right? Like a deaf mute, they can't hear, right? Deaf people. And the obvious relationship to that is, since they can't hear, they don't know what a word sounds like, so they can't talk. I mean, they can kind of feel vibration, and to a certain degree they can try. I've seen some people, but the profoundly deaf, they can't talk. So how they process the world is through sight only. You can't give them verbal instruction. You literally have to show them what to do. I think that's another good example. Of when it becomes necessary to show. So yeah, that's what I woke up thinking about. Or not thinking about, but that was the page in my book that I read this morning for my daily law. Process information by doing. And once you start doing, once you go from the quote unquote textbook learning phase to now you go, all right, now you're going to put these words into motion. At first, it's always hard. It's hard. And sometimes, I would say a lot of the times, that hard part will filter out people that were just not that interested in whatever it was to begin with. Okay, this is hard, I'm not going to do this. But there are those that will push through. Man, this is hard. I'm going to keep doing this. I don't care how hard it is. So once you just keep doing it, even though it's hard, eventually you'll reach a stage where something clicks and you get it. It becomes a little bit more, at least the hard becomes normal. I'm used to this being hard. And once that stage is reached, normally a certain level of proficiency and improvement kicks in. All right, okay, now I get it. Now I get it. You know, whether it's a sport or like a skill or task, there'll become a point where it's not so hard anymore, and that frees up the mind to not focus on how hard it is, and now to focus, it starts to be able to focus on the actual skill itself, not the difficulty of the skill, because the hard part's done. You got used to the hard. That's what I think it is. I don't think it's that the skill becomes not as hard. The skill is just as difficult. You've just become accustomed to the difficulty. All right, here's an example. I decided to start taking cold showers only. Only cold showers. The first time I tried it, here's how I processed it. You know the cold water isn't hurting you. Alright, it's just cold water. But your body reacts in a way like it's a physical threat. You want to jump out of there real quick, like, this is crazy. The sensation is so shocking to the body, it takes it like it's a physical threat. So I started to think, okay, how can I make this easier? Because I want to just be able to just turn on cold water only. This was my goal. I wanted to be able to only turn on the cold water and slowly step into that cold water with zero physical reaction, like it's nothing. But that's hard to do with just the cold water only. So here's what I did. I turned on the shower, got it to a nice, cozy, warm temperature that I normally get in at. I got into the shower under that temperature, and then slowly, little by little, started to turn the hot water off as I'm in there. You know, little turn, stay in there, wait, see how it feels. Okay, it got a little cooler, not bad. You know, it was warm. Now it's just a little less warm. Turn the hot water off a little bit more. Oh, okay. All right, not so bad. It's a little bit cooler. And I did that little by little until the hot water was completely off. And I'm just standing there in cold water. I'm like, oh, this is nothing. Because I incrementally, step by step, acclimated the sensation of the warm water turning cold into a normal thing. So once it got to the point, after I did that for a while, once it got to the point where the sensation of the cold water only was embedded in my mind, then I started with the next step. Okay, this time, cold water only. I'm not gonna turn any hot water on. I'm gonna do cold water only because my mind knows what that feels like. I threw my mind into that mode of, okay, this is what it felt like just standing in cold water. You were fine with it when you went through the process of slowly turning off hot water. You were completely fine when you got to the point when that hot water was off. Remember that. Remember that mental state of being in cold water. This is what it's gonna feel like when it's cold water only. Prepare yourself. So I did it. Cold water only. Stepped right in. So the first thing I noticed when I did that is that your body still wants to react, because instead of a gradual buildup to cold water, it's a sudden shock of cold water. So your body still wants to react. But the memory kicked in real quick. And the first thing I did, because your breathing gets a little out of control. So the first thing I did when I realized that is I started focusing on my breathing. Control your breathing. Took a deep breath in and slowly pushed it out. In through the nose, out through the mouth, slowly. So that was the process for a while, because my body still wanted to be in shock. Even though my mind knew, okay, you know you're fine with this, but now it's just a shocking sensation instead of a gradual build-up to the sensation. So I did that for a while. Cold water only. Step in. Okay, here it comes. Start your breathing right away. You know, if you start the mental process before the shock kicks in, then the shock starts to diminish every time you step in. So now I've built up my mental resilience to the point where now when I get in, I turn on the cold water, take 3 quick breaths. step in. Nothing. I love it. I absolutely love cold showers. I conquered my own mind doing that. I gained control of my own mind. It's like when you're walking a dog, and this dog's not too used to other dogs. Maybe you walk by a yard, but that has a fence and a dog in that yard. And that dog in that yard runs up to the fence barking. The dog you have on the leash, if it's not resilient in the mind, it'll react right away. Bark back, bark, 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 bark. Your job as the leash handler is to get that dog under control. Hey, relax. The same thing must be done with your mind. Think of your mind as a barking dog on a leash. You're holding the leash. You don't have to let your mind be reactive. I think a reactive mind has only gotten that way because you didn't know you were supposed to be controlling it at all times. You were 100% always supposed to be in control of your mind. That's why people react when someone cusses them out or gives them a finger, or you feel the need to have to react. You don't have to react. Let the other people bark behind their fence. They want the reaction, matter of fact. It's the reason they're doing it. Right? The reason somebody calls you a name or gives you the finger or does anything like that to you, because they're looking for a reaction. The best thing to do with those people is don't give it to them. It pisses them off. Like, man, I just gave this guy the finger. He didn't do anything. F him. Let's do it again. Let's call him a name while we do it. F you, as they're giving you the finger. Man, he didn't even react. Huh. They're real bored. They'll stop messing with you. They go on to the next. They're looking for weak people. That's what it is. They're looking for weak people to pick on. People who do stuff like that or act that way, or just who are bullies or just say terrible things or just insult people or like to talk shit. Sorry, didn't mean to cuss. I don't like people who like to talk shit. Sorry, didn't mean to cuss, but I'm gonna keep using that word. To me, it's an indication of a primitive mentality. That's one of those moments where, like, I am confident in saying, yeah, I am better than that. I don't talk shit. That happens a lot in sports. A lot of shit talking in sports. I've never done that. I consider my skill at the sport, like I used to play basketball. My skill is all the shit I need to talk. But I let my actions talk for me. It's kind of funny because now I'm sitting in front of a camera, all I'm doing is talking. But that's what I'm talking about, that's the important part. Because everything I am saying, I will do when this camera goes off. And just that right now, just happen to be just talking. I have to drive right now. Can't be doing what I'm talking about. I'm driving. Oh, perfect example. Last video, I was talking about the periphery. That's where the term peripheral comes from when you're talking about your peripheral vision. That's the ability to see out towards the side, right? Your blind spot. You can train yourself to be more sensitive to your blind spots. And as I was making this video, this dude was changing lanes right into me, and I saw it coming out of my blind spot. So I had to move over onto the shoulder because he wasn't stopping. I'm not going to let him hit my car, and I'm not going to be so stubborn as to stay in my lane. Oh, I have insurance. Go ahead and hit me. No, I'm not going to let that happen. I don't need all the drama of having to go through the insurance and having all that pull over and talk to this guy and exchange information just because he's screwed up. So I was quick enough to check my mirrors on the other side, move over. I was in the slow lane, so I had the benefit of being able to use the shoulder, and I knew where I was, so I knew the shoulder was kind of safe. But yeah, it's right as I was talking about, be aware of your periphery. Don't be so focused on what you're doing that you're missing what's coming out of your blind spot, because that's what knocks you for a loop. Not what you see coming, it's what you don't see coming. So practice that. Practice working on your blind spots. It's hard at first, right? We have these mentally, not just physically with your vision, but your mental vision sometimes has a blind spot. You're so focused on your own opinions and in your own ego that you could be missing something, even if that something is just the other side of the opinion, you know, the opposing opinion. They might have a point. Explore that. Case in point, perfect example, immigration. There are those that don't want to see people come into this country illegally, and there's a good reason for that, especially if the people coming in illegally, if you're coming in illegal, that means you didn't check in, right? You didn't ask for permission, you didn't show your ID from the place you're coming from and say, hey, I'd like to come into your country. You didn't do it that way, you snuck in. See, for me, that speaks deeply as to who you might end up being while you're here. If you're willing to do something sneaky to get here, what else are you willing to do in a sneaky way while you're here? That's a very reasonable question to ask, and a reasonable way to think, right? Look at this guy. What are you doing? These people are fucking shit drivers on the road. What is going on? Okay, he had to pull over. He's on the shoulder now. There's a lot of weird movement on the road recently. But yeah, the blind spot to the conversation of immigration. Okay, I am one that agrees that people should not be sneaking into the country because I take it like my home, and I don't like people sneaking into my personal home, right? My personal property. I don't like people sneaking into my car. I don't like people sneaking into my apartment complex. I don't like people sneaking into my unit. If I owned a house, I wouldn't want people sneaking past my gate into my yard. All this I take personally on that level. Why wouldn't I take it personally on the level of my country that I live in, or this? You know what I mean? It's just I don't agree with that. That makes sense to me. All right, let's look at where might my blind spot be? The other side is okay, right? The other side uses the phrase, there are no illegals on stolen land, which is a stupid phrase, but okay. Let's explore that. Let's just take the stolen land part out because it's a ridiculous point to try to make. Because the people using this, the celebrities using this, they live, I said it before, they live in private communities, behind high walls, and secure gates and private security guards and cameras. They live in the most secure locations on earth, and they're over here wanting people to just sneak into the country. All right, whatever. Let's just move that off to the side. Let's move the stolen land. Let's say there are no illegals. Let's just say we're all humans on earth, and we should all just be allowed. Trying to explore that in a way that exposes my blind spot. All right. Where might there be an exception? Okay, here's one I could think of. If you're coming from a country that is killing your people for whatever reason, let's just say you are just being religiously persecuted. Let's say there's some sort of racial or ethnic cleansing going on, and they are literally rounding you up and killing your people. Let's say like the Jews. Okay. I have compassion for that. They are killing you. All of you. They're trying to kill all of you. Okay, you know what? If you're sneaking into my country because of that, okay. I'm okay with that. I can make an exception for that. Is that what's happening for the most part right now with the immigration though? No. I think what's happening is that for the most part, people just know that there is an open, exposed border and that you can just walk on in. And they're taking advantage of it. But if you are from a place that you are being persecuted in, I would make the exception for that. Come on in. Because this is supposed to be the country of freedom, where you're not supposed to be persecuted because of a religion or an ethnicity or whatever kind of ideology you might be under, or genetic line you come from. This is the country for it, or at least it's supposed to be. But if you're just being an opportunist, sorry, that's not okay. That's the only blind spot I can see there with the immigration topic. So that's me, right? Working on my skill of exposing a blind spot in my consciousness. I can make one exception to the immigration topic. Blatant persecution. There it is. Worked on it. Getting better at catching myself being hard-headed. And that's what we're all supposed to be doing, right? You are constant works in progress. In the book itself, the page I referenced, it was more to like an occupation or like an actual physical skill. Like if you're an artisan, you're making certain things, or you want to learn a certain task. Doing makes things easier by getting past the hard initial stage. When it comes to improving your mentality, and upgrading your thought process, I think the first initial hard part is admitting that you have room for improvement. I think that's the hardest thing to do, because now you have to go to battle with your own mind and admit. You have to make an admission. You are not perfect. You are far from perfect. And there is plenty of room for improvement. A lot of people don't like doing that. They don't like tearing down the scaffolding of their ego. I actually like doing that. It was one of those things. It wasn't easy at first. See? Perfect with the page I read. It wasn't easy admitting I'm not perfect. Now I like to admit I'm not perfect. It's a humbling experience. I like that feeling of ooh, I can get better. If you have the mentality of you're perfect, that's I don't like that. For me, I don't like that thought. I like the idea like ooh, I can be more. Oh heck yeah! Show me, tell me. What do I do? Point the way. Show me that. But what did you read? I'll read that. How did you do that? Okay, let me try. I like that. That's fun. That's like uncharted territory, like an explorer. Ooh, this is new. All right, let me check this out. Never done this before. Never thought this way before. Never had this idea run through my head before. Okay, let's entertain that thought. Let's move. Let's go in this direction. I know the direction I'm used to being in. I thought I knew it all. Now I don't know it all. Ooh, I like that. Now I get to learn more. Oh, that's the best. This is what I enjoy. And even though like all this learning is moving you towards the eventual attainment of mastery, again, I think even if you attain master level status where everybody's acknowledging how good you are at something, or how proficient you are at something, or how developed you are mentally, or I think when you reach that, you should catch that moment and purposely knock yourself down now. Okay. People are saying this. That means I need to move into another arena. I need to become a student again in another way. Because masters, there's the idea of plateauing. You have plateaued. You can't go any higher than this. You've reached the limit. I don't like that thought. I don't like that idea. I like the idea of limitlessness, which means there's always further up to go in the ladder of development. There's another rung to reach. And that's the road I'm currently on. The road I'm on is endless. The goal I'm after has another goal beyond it. That's the way I'm trying to keep my mind in the mode of endless goals. Endless, never ends. That's why I think it'd be cool if the idea of reincarnation is true, right? Oh, you thought it was just going to be this life, and then at the end, you reached your goal, you reached heaven. I kind of don't like that. I mean, I get it, I get the idea. But I like more the idea that this was like life, classes in session. Learn the lessons, and hopefully you'll get it by the end. And maybe what you learned during this one, if properly learned, you could apply towards the next one, next class. Because there's always classes, and there's always other masters to learn from. And there's nowhere to go but down once you reach the top. So for me, the top is an infinite point in space. It just, once it moves, once you move towards it, it moves further away, a little bit higher. Okay, you got here, it went here. For me, I like that. Always the student, never the master. Let's go to work.